Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And welcome to this Inside Scientific and Stable Systems webinar titled The Respiration Chamber Technique for Quantification of Methane Emissions in Ruminants. I'm Liam Sanyo from the events team here at scientist.com, and I'll be the host. Today we're being joined by Dr. Juan Ku-Vera, who's a lecturer in animal nutrition at the University of Yucatan, who will discuss the application of respiration chambers for measuring and mitigating methane emissions in ruminants. Juan, thanks so much for joining us today, and the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Liam, for this introduction. And good morning, everybody. I am Juan Ku-Vera. I am a lecturer in animal nutrition at the University of Yucatan in Mexico. This morning, we're going to deal with the respiration chamber technique for quantification of methane emissions in ruminants. I will give first a brief introduction on the subject, then I'll move into design and building of respiration chambers, and then a little bit of gas analysis and respirometry, calibration of chambers and analyzers, measuring methane in respiration chambers, and a few concluding remarks. And as you know, climate change is the sign of our times, affecting societies across the world. And this increase in temperature is supposed to be driven by the emissions of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide mostly. And the livestock sector contributes to this in an important way. Depending on the herds, the size of the herd of a given region, of a given country. In Mexico, we got 35 million head of cattle in all the states, and is considered to be an important source of emissions of a greenhouse gas such as methane, which is in fact eructated to the environment by ruminant species. Climate change is having a negative impact on societies. Severe droughts, floods, hurricanes, tropical storms affect the economy of the production of goods in the agricultural sector, but also in the livestock sector, inducing the loss of animals when there are heavy floods in many countries. That's why it is important to measure the emission of greenhouse gases such as methane. But this is nothing new. The measurement of carbon dioxide and methane comes from many years ago, as you can see in this slide. In the early days, in the 1980s, in several laboratories in Central Europe, in Germany, and in France, researchers were interested in measuring the heat production mostly, which has to do with the efficiency complex of the energy metabolism in animals. And this has been recorded in several important books, such as those three at the bottom, as you can see, from 1945, the Brody book, the 1961, the Max Kleber book on the fight of life, and in 1962, the book by Kenneth Blackster. So this comes from the measurement of heat and carbon dioxide and oxygen and methane comes from many years ago, and this created the need to design and building respiration chambers. So for those young researchers who are moving into this area of science, there are several books. There are important books such as Animal and Human Calorimetry and Measuring Metabolic Rates. John Lighton, very, very good books for those embarking into designing and building respiration chambers. And most recently, this manual on technical manual on respiration chamber design, which are available on the internet. So there is information which one must read before embarking into this. And then the first thing is the layout of the respiration chambers, of open circuit pull systems of indirect calorimetry, as you can see here. You can see here this layout with two chambers, and then how the air is pulled from the chambers into the analyzers and then into a computer. And then you see another layout with 4 chambers, and then into a multiplexer, and then into a subsamplers, relative humidity analyzer, and then into the carbon dioxide, methane, and oxygen analyzer, and then into the computer system. So that's the general layout that you must think about how you're going to do this. Regarding, of course, budget and the place where they're going to build respiration chambers. So once you decide the general layout, then you go into the construction, with several materials. For example, you can use sheet metal, you can use acrylic, you can use stainless steel. There are several designs for respiration chambers, both in size and the materials, that you can use to build these chambers. Look at these chambers here. You can see here the exit of air from the chamber very clearly. And you can use acrylic to give visibility from the outside, from the cattlemen, from the scientists, to see the animal, and the animals themselves, that are able to see other animals, and get used to this closed environment of a respiration chamber. There are several models. You can see here this of both sheet metal and acrylic or polycarbonate that you can use. You can see here this system to restrain the animal. This sort of cage, to restrain the animal, to avoid the animal hitting the size of the respiration chamber, a big feed bunk, And this, you can see these chambers with steel, and you can see here the latches to close the chambers. This is in fact a 2-story building in Japan. You can see here the upper floor, and down below there are the room to collect feces, to collect urine, to mix the urine, and mix the feces to get a sample, and so forth. Very, very nice design of respiration chambers that you can see here, using several materials. Here you see these chambers, again, a system to restrain the animal inside the chamber, a mat here to give the animals, a comfortable place. You can see here the chambers built even with wood, a little bit of wood. Yes, you see a very large feeder here, and a water here. You can see here the water in these chambers in Germany, and a very big feed bunk here, and these chambers with an airlock, even an airlock, to be able to get into the chamber and say to milk the cow. Yeah, so you can do all this in your design. You can see several models of chambers in the scientific literature, and decide how are you going to do it. This is a very recent and very good model in Cornell University. You can see 4 chambers here of stainless steel. You see here the latches of the chambers, and I can see the sort of system for restraining the animal, to control the movement of the animal in the chamber, to keep it in place. And that's so for us here. When the time came to build chambers and use a flow-through open circuit pull type respirometry, here you see we have a shed open at both sides, and here we got metabolic stalls to get use the animals to this restrained environment, if you like. We use rumen cannulated animals in most of our trials, and at the back you see the 2 respiration chambers that we built here. You can see here the air exiting from the chambers up to the measurement room, and here we have a space for for down below here you can see a space to collect the feces and to collect the urine separately and measure with very precision the intake of the dry matter intake of the animal. So we at the back here you can see the emergency power unit for this laboratory to avoid problems during the heavy rainy season here in South Mexico. So that's the general scheme. We got two chambers, and you can see it's very simple, these enclosures here, and then we let outside air, atmospheric air, to get into the chamber. We pull the air into the chamber, and then we take the air outside. We filter the air before getting into the mass flow meters, and then we send the sample of air to the multiplexer, and then to the air dryer, and then to the analyzers. Here to the methane analyzer, but then to the oxygen and carbon dioxide analyzers, and then the output is sent to the computer. So it's a very simple, scheme layout that you can see in the most of the information in the literature. Here's an example from another layout in this paper by Lisana in 2023. And you can see that they are driving air from atmospheric air into the chamber, and then they use a fan, and then here's the exit from the chamber. They filter the air to avoid the passing of small feed particles, dust, and some material that may mess with your measurement. Then they send this to the mass flow meter, and then they send this to the air from chamber 1, chamber 2, chamber 3, chamber 4 to a multiplexer, and then to air dryer right, and then to the water vapor analyzer, carbon dioxide and oxygen analyzer, and etc., and then to the computer. So this you can read this information and decide on with your team what is best to do. In our case, here you can see the air inlet is a PVC with a handle here, handle that you can graduate the size of the opening quite easily here to get air into atmospheric air into the chamber. It is a flow-through open circuit pool system with these windows of acrylic 9 millimeters thick, and we seal with normal commercial sealants here, urethane and several others. So there are two windows, one here to the left, one to the right, or left, right to the animal, so we can see the animal inside. And those sort of details that you use. This is the upper side of the chambers. Here you can see the air exiting the chamber. This is PVC, but inside this PVC is used to protect a hose, a single unit hose, covered with Isla-Flex to avoid condensation of air. And we have this here. We filter the air here with handmade filters, with screen filters to avoid the passing of dust coming from the chamber. Here you see the walls, which are sheet metal, and that's it. How it works. Our design is something like this, something like this in general. You see, we use a mat here to protect the claws of the animal. Here we the feces pass here. Then we got this system to protect the chambers, a very large feed bank, and we got the water here, which is automatic. There is a fan here. We mix the air inside the chamber. Here is the air inlet. Here is the air exiting system. Inside the chamber, there is an air conditioning unit, and also the humidifier here at the front to get relative humidity, to put the relative humidity at 55%, and the air inside the chamber at 23 degrees centigrade. This is the rear door. And this is the general design now with the animal inside, standing the animal in there. We accustomed to animals for roughly between 3 and 4 weeks. Before, first in the metabolic stalls, then into the chamber with the doors open. After a few days, then we close the doors of the chamber, and then we start to measure dry matter intake, and then the animal gets very docile. You can move the animal quite easily, quite secure for the cattlemen and also for the students and other people. And then these are the size of the of the chamber walls, the ceiling, and this is the restraint cage for the animals. We put some windows here, metal windows, to be able to sample the coccygeal vein of the animal and get a sample, blood sample from the animals and so on. This is the front side, we got this system, very nice system to control the intake of the animal, so the animal cannot pull forage outside of the feed bunk. So that's how we do it. And all these ideas, we took them from papers and from books and from photographs from other laboratories in the world who had tried this. You see here, this we got a space here to move feed, to weigh food, to weigh forage. We had scales here, balances, and material to clean the chambers. So this is the air conditioning unit, the fan, small fan here. This is a tubular metal tubing to restrain the movement of the animal. You see this Nelore animal, which is a Bos Indicus breed. It's a little bit nervous, but with training, the animal will be very, 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 docile. Well, a little bit. Here's the humidifier, the air conditioning unit here. There is a lamp here for at night. We put it on so the animal can see around, can see the feed bunk well. The animal can stand, can lie down. He is comfortable there, and he can defecate, he can urinate, he can eat all the food without any problem. And the intake inside the chamber is rather very, very similar as what we measure outside this chamber. So there are no, problems of restraint, of limitation, of restriction of feed intake. So you can see the steel grid here, the rubber mat that we use, the system to control the pushing the animal, the feed bunk. So we avoid this to happen. We use a chain here to restrain the animal, and that's how it works. This is our ramp to get the animal inside the chamber. We have to build this bridge, because here there is an empty space, a corridor. So we build this ramp, this bridge, metal bridge, to take the animals inside the chamber. So that's in general, it's very quite. This is the watering through, automatic watering through. This is the filter for the urine here. And this is the drain for the urine here, what you can see with PVC. And this is the back of the chamber, quite a simple model. And then this is the latches of the chamber here. There are several different type of latches that you can use. We choose to use this, and since then we have added one more here to give more strength to the closing of the chambers, and then I will move now into gas analysis. You can use several types of analyzers. There are many in the market: Servomex, MyHack, Horiba, Shimatsu, etc. And the general principles are for oxygen, paramagnetic or fuel cell, or carbon dioxide, and methane. You can use infrared analyzers. You can see here several types of oxygen analyzers here of Servomex. And in our case, we after searching the equipment available in the world market, we decided to go for stable system equipment. We got here carbon dioxide analyzers, methane analyzer, oxygen analyzers, mass flow generators and multiplexers and so forth, looking for for costs, robustness of the equipment. That's very important because the equipment we are running 24 hours, most not every day. There are periods of adaptation, but we run our equipment continuously in time through the year, and we look for accurateness, for reliability, to be able to get spare parts and technical supports and so forth. So we decided to go for Sable, with time, after 10 years of working with this equipment, I can tell you that it is robust. It is very strong equipment. I have many students and visitors have passed through this laboratory, both Mexicans and from other countries. And this is our set. This is our rack here, and we got this methane analyzer, carbon dioxide analyzer, and oxygen analyzer at the top of the rack. Here we got the multiplexer, the SS4 subsampler. Then we got the RH300 relative humidity. We got this interface, and then we send the output to the computer here, where we got this software, Expedata, to analyze the data. And these are the mass flow meters. These are the filters for gas. We got two chambers. We got two mass flow meters here, and this is the rear right column. And this is, a very similar arrangement to other laboratories in the world. You can see here with 4 mass flow meters and the equipment, the analyzers here, carbon dioxide, methane, and carbon dioxide, and methane and oxygen analyzers. And, the setup is quite similar among laboratories using this sort of equipment across the world. And that's how we did it. How it looks. The different arrangements from different labs in the world is quite simple to do, and very sort of reliable instruments to analyze with precision, accurateness, methane, carbon dioxide, and oxygen. And now we got this new hydrogen analyzer. We have still trying to find out how to put it into operation. We hope in the next few months, to be able to do that. And we use these flow meters, small flow meters, to be certain of the flow through our chambers. And so this is the multiplexer. We got 8 channels, very nice. We have room for at least 2 more chambers that we haven't built yet, but we will probably do it in the future. And this is how it looks. Our equipment here. This is the interface, to send the signal to the Expedata system. And then we have spent a little bit of time, calibrating the chambers and the analyzers. We use gravimetric calibration of the chambers. We use cylinders of spun gas. We got nitrogen cylinders to zero in the equipment. We got cylinders of ultra pure methane here. We release methane into the chamber to measure the recovery rate of methane. That's very similar to other laboratories use. You see here the cylinders, the computer, and the scales to calibrate the chamber somewhere else in the world. So we use this. We use the chambers without an animal. Then we use a balance of 2 digits balance. We use pure methane here. We got the pressure regulated, the flow meter, and then we release gravimetrically methane into this empty chamber. This is our pure cylinder with 99.9% pure methane. You see here the valve. You see here the flow meter. And we get methane into pure methane into the chamber, similar to what is used in other laboratories across the world. You see the cylinders of heat there of spun gas and several concentrations and of gas for calibration. And then you can use even carbon dioxide inside a balance or alcohol burning as well to, as reported in the scientific literature. We have here spun gases with oxygen, carbon dioxide, and methane at those concentrations. And to check on the linearity of the analyzer, we use several concentrations of methane, 7,500 ppm, at 5,000, and so forth, and 1,000 ppm. To check on the linearity of the infrared methane analyzers. We have done this many times, releasing concentration of diluted methane in nitrogen against the concentration in the analyzer, and you can see here absolutely linear. It works. The R square is very good, and we have confidence that our analyzer is working well, and that we are recovering methane pretty well against other laboratories in the world, you see, and against other recoveries in the world. We work out our calibration factors. And here you can see when you release methane, when you open your cylinder, you immediately see the signal in your chamber, and when you close your cylinder, immediately you see a decrease down to zero of methane measured in your analysis. So you are sure that you are working pretty well. We have done even the efficiency of methane recovery in the duct. That means from the exit of the chamber to the analyzer. And we have measured this efficiency here based on the scientific literature with the very same system that I told you a few minutes ago, releasing methane and recovering here in the. And again, you see the efficiency of the duct when you start the release of pure methane here. Immediately you see the signal in the analyzer, and then when you close the cylinder, you immediately see a decrease. So we know pretty well the stability of the plateau and the time response at 90 and 200 and 100 seconds and so forth. And how is that we do our calibration and the efficiency of the linearity of the analyzers, the efficiency of the duct, and we compare that with other laboratories in the world, in the literature, so we know where we are and how good our calibration factors. We can even measure the noise, of our equipment by measuring chamber 1, chamber 2 of the mass flow meters. And here you can see at the right the recovery of several runs here and the mean value. So we got very good recoveries of methane release in those respiration chambers, which are working on negative pressure. We use a negative pressure of around 80 to 100 Pascal, which is enough to keep we know the chambers are sealed, and we do that with the manometers. We got here manual manometers that we check the negative pressure in the chamber, and we are the overall efficiency of the respiration chambers. We measure it here in this slide to work out our calibration factors for chamber 1, chamber 2. And we compare this against other chambers in the world. And well, we know where we stand for. You see this red and blue are the Mexican chambers, and those are chambers elsewhere in the world, so we know. So once we do that, we go into measurement. We have been measuring methane for several years now here. But basically to contribute to the methane emission of the inventories of this country, of Mexico, trying to give more precision to measurements with in vivo. And we work out the mean emission of methane yield, grams of methane per kilo dry matter intake, where we know our range here in this sort of experiments with several measurements, almost 60 measurements here. We got many points now. We got now this with tropical grasses that with 66 measurements in the chamber. We know that the methane yield is around 18 grams methane per kilo dry matter intake. And with that, we contribute to give more precision to the methane inventories in Mexico. But we are also concerned with the measurement of methane mitigation by measuring in vivo in the respiration chambers with cattle, crossbred cattle. And we got this experiment with up to 80% leucaena, which is a tropical legume available in Australia, in Africa, in South America, and Central America, and in Mexico. And you can see here the weight of the animals, the dry matter intake of the crossbred cows, and the methane mitigation from 98 grams down to 38 grams when using 8%, which is quite a lot of methane, of leucaena, this tropical legume widely available in Central, South, and Mexico. And here in this other experiment with Montoya, that up to until 36% dry matter of the ration of leucaena, you can see again that you can bring down methane grams per day from 174 down to 140 grams at 30% incorporation in the ration. That percent is quite similar to what the animal eats in association on the field. This is around, roughly between 20 to 35% dry matter of leucaena on the field. So you know that you can decrease methane at around some 18, 19%. And in this last experiment by Morales Velasco on print now, we know that you can decrease methane production grams per day with crossbred animals from 310 grams down to 254 grams with 44% leucaena in the ration. So we are pretty certain of the possibility of reducing methane with this sort of series of experiments, but also in this last experiment we measure now, once we got the carbon dioxide analyzer, the oxygen analyzer, we can decrease heat production. And that's very important because we are repeating this experiment now. If you can do that, then probably you are affecting maintenance energy requirements of the animal or the heat increment of feeding. So this is quite interesting. Probably an effect of mimosine in leucaena on the release of T3 and T4 hormones controlling energy metabolism in animals. So we are looking at this. Seems interesting, and it could be a little bit more efficiency, increase the efficiency of energy metabolism in animals. We have used other plants like this Bursera cimaruba, which is a tree widely used in Central and American Mexico as live fence. It contains secondary metabolites such as condensed tannins, and in here you can see that you can, if you incorporate 20% of dry matter as the forage of Bursera cimaruba, you can decrease methane from 239 without foliage down to 189 grams per day, and that is possible with this tree. So the forage of this tree, the animals can browse it themselves. They can browse this forage, or you can cut it with machete and bring it to the feed through, and then you can do this quite easily on the practical conditions in farms and in these areas of the world. And it's from my point of view, it's quite practical and simple. Decrease methane on the production conditions, and this evidence shows that you can use even palm oil, a byproduct of palm the extraction of oil in some areas of Mexico and elsewhere in Asia. And then if you incorporate 6% of the palm oil in the ration of crossbred heifers, you can decrease methane from 154 grams down to 128 grams with this 6%, which is quite easy to do with this oil, with another mechanism which is called biohydrogenation of the unsaturated fatty acids by the excess hydrogen in the rumen. So It's quite simple to do as well. Simple whenever you have, if you have, this byproduct in your region. That here in Mexico we have several regions where you have available that palm oil, and that's quite simple to do. So it can be, methane emission can be decreased in a practical way in many areas of the world. So we can say with that, we can conclude that the respiration chamber technique is an appropriate tool for the precise measurement of methane, carbon dioxide, and oxygen emissions to work out heat production. But a prerequisite for the accurate measurement of methane is the calibration of the system of chambers, both chambers and analyzers, to reduce the uncertainty of their measurements. And the technique, sometimes I have heard that, it's very expensive. It doesn't need to be utterly expensive. You can evaluate, you can choose several construction materials and choose depending on your budget, and you can get gas analyzers that are very reliable, very robust, and that work on the heavy use, as we have done that through more than 10 years here in Mexico. And you can measure with high precision, very accurately, the emissions in cattle. And this greenhouse gas can be really mitigated with the use of several foliages, pods, and oils, and shrubs which contain a number of condensed tannins, saponins, and flavonoids in these materials, in these forages. So that's what I wanted to talk to you this morning. I thank you for your attention, and let the floor open to questions from you who are attending this webinar. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Juan, for a great presentation. The Q&A questions, we can kick those off. The first of those ones is actually, there's two questions that are kind of similar, so I'll ask them together. But how many days do the animals have to remain in the respiration chambers to get accurate data? And also, similar question is, how long should these individual subjects be acclimated to the chamber prior to starting an experiment?
Yeah. Very, very good questions. Thank you very much. Yes, we use here sets of, say, 4 to 6 animals, and we spend at around, in general, 3 weeks to 4 weeks training the animals, handling the animals in the shed. We tie the animals, and with the cattlemen we move the animals around. We sort of handle the rumen cannulas. We open the cannulas, we close, we walk the animals around the shed, around the corridor. In a few words, we get the animals to be sort of tranquil, that they will get we feed the animals, we put the water inside, and then we move the animals up to the metabolic stalls. And then they stay there they are close to the chambers. They are very close to the chambers, as you saw in the first slides, and that takes us around a month. Even animals coming from the paddocks here, Nelore cattle, we are reputed to be nervous type of animals. When they arrive here, they are nervous, they are difficult to handle. You got 2-3 operators with ropes to handle the animals. But as the days pass by, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, the animals get very more easy to move. So it takes time to adapt the animals to that claustrophobic environment of a respiration chamber. That's why we do it very, 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 very slowly. We put the animals inside the chamber a few days with the doors open, 3-4 days. We close the doors, we run the mass flow meters, and then we feed the animal in the morning. We use the animal to stand, to lie down, a few days for the animal to lie down. We see the animal second day, third day, the animal lie down. The animal starts to ruminate. You see, measure dry matter intake gives you a lot of information that you are on the right path. You measure dry matter intake when it is very similar to what you measure outside the chambers. Yeah, you really are dealing with animals which are used to the respiration chamber environment. And you see the animals lying down, standing, drinking water, ruminating, and not nervous. When you feed the animals, they come easily, and then you in the chamber for measurements. We use here usually 3 days, 3 days, and then we get out the animals of the chamber back to the metabolic stalls near to the chambers, and we sort of rest the animals, and then we get another pair of animals inside the chambers. 3 days, then we move out the animals, and then we move another pair of animals inside the chamber. So we rotate the animals through time. 3 days most of the time, 2 days in some experiments, and the most we have used here is, I believe, 4 days. Once a few years ago, I cannot remember pretty well, but in the literature, in the scientific literature, you will see anything between 2 and 5 days, in my experience, in what I have read. So here we have seen that by using 3 days, the variation in feed intake is you have a small variation in feed intake, and the main variable determining methane emission is precisely dry matter intake. Dry matter intake in the scientific literature is the most importantly related variable. Of course, you can use organic matter intake and other variables, but if you look at the literature, it will be more related to dry matter intake. So, to get enough replicates, we use 3 days in the chamber, and then we get our animals to rest for a few days outside the chamber to get the animal out of that claustrophobic enclosure, and that's it. That's my comment. My answer to those questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, fantastic. Great answer. Thanks so much, Juan. All right, next question here is what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of using respiration chamber as opposed to other similar techniques?
Yeah, thank you very much. Very good question. One of the main disadvantage of the technique is that the animal is eating what you are serving the animal. The animal cannot choose. The animal has no opportunity to select as the animal does in an outside environment. So the animal the disadvantage will be the animal is eating what you are offering the animal in the proportions that you are feeding the animal. The great advantage is that it is a very precise technique, very, very precise, because you got with very accurate the dry matter intake, the organic matter intake of the animal, which is the most important variable driving methane emission. If you are using other techniques, as it is a possibility, you don't have you don't measure the methane coming out by flatulence, which is say 2-3%, which can be discarded if you like, but it is still some percentage, of the total methane emission of the animal. So you got the total emission of the animal, of methane emission of the animal, and you got the dry matter intake, which is complicated to measure. You can do it, but it's a little bit tricky, to measure in outside. You need to use Alkanes, as we have done it in the past, we used to use markers. You used to use alkanes. You used to need to complement the techniques to measure intake in a outdoors environment. So, in our experience, we have done, we have chosen this technique because of the reliability and accurateness of the technique itself, of the technique itself, however, very recently, last week, we know the methane emission, the cure of methane emission in a respiration chamber. I remember pretty well. You give the animal food at 8 o'clock, and methane will start to immediately. You see the signal in the computer. You see how methane is increasing quickly in time. The increase is very steep. You see immediately methane until about a steep increase until at about 4 to 6 hours. You see a peak, and then you see a decrease in methane, gradual decrease until 24 hours. And that, if you look at that methane cure, is quite similar to the cures I see in a few other laboratories in the world. The animal in a respiration chamber, how he eats, how he produces methane. However, very recently, that means last week, I saw some information from, which was the technique. It was another sniffer technique utilized. And I saw the cure through time. I saw it very different, like peaks here and peaks and downs, and then another peaks, which resembles pretty well those who have measured intake in the paddock in a grassland. It resembles pretty well the behavior of an animal in a paddock, which is, peaks of grazing behavior in the 24-hour period. A few peaks there. I can remember some 2 or 3 peaks, around 2 or 3 peaks in the afternoon and night. You see something, but it looks different, and it called very much my attention last week. But I hadn't remembered that in the literature. But it's something important that I want to bring into this discussion. So those guys who are coming are deciding in techniques, think a little bit also about the ingested behavior of animals that may play an effect on the shape of the methane production curve in a day. Yeah, that's my answer and comment. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Yeah, great points. Thank you. All right, next one here. Juan, what is the airflow rate through your chambers?
Yeah, thank you very much. The airflow, we usually work our chambers at, say, anything between 400 and 500 liters per minute. Around that value, around those values, that range, depending, for example, on the weight of the animal. Well, we are trying also to adjust. We have animals of different range, and we try to adjust that depending on some value published in the scientific literature, which says roughly 1.2, as far as I remember, 1.2, 1 point something liters per minute for a flow rate with large species, large ruminants like cattle, like the cattle we use here. So we use animals roughly in the range, 290, 300 kilo, and then 350, some 430 kilo. So roughly we are in that range of using those mass flow meters. As soon as we study mass flow meters, we immediately measure a few seconds after we study mass flow meters. We measure with the manometers negative pressure inside the chamber. So it's a further comment, that immediately we see that our chambers are very sort of negatively pressure, and it is even difficult to open the doors. I mean, if you try, you will feel the sort of resistance to the opening of those chambers. Yeah, that's the answer and the comment to that question. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Alrighty. Okay, another question here. So, Juan, how do you account for the methane possibly from flatulence of the animal?
Sorry, I didn't get that right. Could you please repeat your question?
How do you account for the methane possibly from flatulence of the animal?
No, you cannot account. You cannot account for that. You cannot account, but that's a very good question, and I thought on that. I thought on that last 2 days ago, because I was in a discussion with some colleagues elsewhere in the world, and yeah, we will do that pretty soon. But in a respiration chamber, you cannot account that. You have to. When I was saying 2-3%, it comes from, of course, from the literature, from a paper. I'm pointing out that measurement that I cannot remember at this point how they measure it. At this moment, I cannot remember how those guys measure that. But I will tell you what I'm planning to do as soon as we got chamber time, a little bit of chamber time. We got rumen cannulated animals here, and we have used during the last few years the rumen empty technique. So for us, it's quite easy to empty the reticular rumen. Quite easy to do in around 30 minutes, 40 minutes at the most. So I was planning to do this, to withdraw all reticular rumen digesta, and to measure methane under those conditions. So I guess the digesta remaining in the tract will be mostly in the cecum, and then and probably we won't do that this year, but probably next year we will have some chamber time to do that. Very good question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely really interesting thing to look into for sure. All right, next question, and this one sort of goes back to a question, maybe the one before last, but how do you measure the chamber airflow rate? What type of system do you use?
The chamber airflow rate? Oh, sorry. We measure it with mass flow meters. We use the mass flow meter technique, which is one of the standards techniques these days. And you can find mass flow meters of different types in the market. Very precise, very accurate. This technique compared to techniques in the past. For example, in the past, you use mercury pumps, chemical agents collecting the gas in tubes, and all those techniques were more cumbersome, were more complicated than these mass flow meters. We are lucky to have these flow kits, these so-called mass flow meters, because they are in our conditions where they are integrated to a software called Expedata. So it's very nice for us to work out to measure air passing through the chamber, because it was quite simple and quite easily with young students. Here I have students, undergrads and postgrads, working with young students, and the techniques under these conditions is very, very convenient for us here compared to other techniques in the past. And that's the great advantage of mass flow meters. And we use other flow meters that we get in the market to measure, for example, the airflow from the cylinders, from the small when we calibrate from the small cylinders to the chamber. We use other flow meters, smaller flow meters, simple flow meters here, but we use for the chambers that mass flow meters. With a range up to 400 liters per minute. I hope at some point we'll get a mass flow meter with a higher capacity, because at some point we will get. And last week, some people here in Mexico was interested to get a size here, which may weigh some 800, 700, 800 kilo. So probably we will need mass flow meters with a higher capacity, and I hope to be able to do that in the next few years. Thank you very much for the question.
Fantastic. Well, I think in the interest of time, we'll stop there. But Juan, thanks so much for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you very much to all of you for the questions, and thank you very much. See you soon.
Definitely a big thanks to the audience for joining us today. And in closing, we hope you enjoyed this Inside Scientific and Sable Systems webinar, and we'll see you again next time. Have a great day, everyone.